radio silence for a few minutes until we see who our stragglers may be.
Okay.
Put us on live.
And Hardy, I don't have Hardy either on here.
All right.
Is he
So
voting member?
yes, he is.
So,
We have what we need. I believe it is the 29th of June, and it is 6:35, and the Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union Board is now called to order. I think we have a number of adjustments to the agenda to make, and why don't we? Oh, yes, we'll do introductions first, and then we will. Thank you. And then we will go on to make some adjustments to the agenda. I'm going to do the room here at the high school first, and I'm going to start with my furthest right. So, who are you?
Molly Bannock, representing Westminster on the Bellas Falls Union High School Board.
Cheryl Charles, Westminster School Board. Jennifer Keenan, Wyndham Northeast Early Ed Principal.
Jim Bazina, Finance.
Priscilla Lambert, representing Rockingham.
I'm Jack Breyer, and I represent the WNESU Board and serve as its chair and chair of this board. Moving on.
Andy Hoff, Superintendent of Schools.
Erin Blanchard, Westminster School Board.
Christopher Kibbe, Rockingham School Board.
Ricky Adams, Technology.
All right, and we have several folks online right now. Teen, you want to start?
Sure, I'm Teen BLC, Westminster School Board.
Hardy, you're up.
Hardy Merrill, WNUESD School Board.
All right. Tara, you're on. Do you want to say hello?
Probably not.
Shy. All right. And I see that for the public, we have Fact TV here. We have Susan Small here for the performers, best I would guess. And we're ready to take a look at the agenda and see if there are needs to make adjustments. I think there are a couple, are there not?
Yeah, I had requested that the policies that we mentioned and at the May 18th meeting that were posted on May 18th, that would be on our next agenda, be on this one. And so those need to be added.
Let's do that.
C10, prevention of harassment, hazing, and bullying of students. C10P, the procedures that go along with C10 on the prevention of the harassment, hazing, and bullying. C11, student freedom of expression in school-sponsored media. C12, prevention of sexual harassment as prohibited by Title IX. C14, policy on section 504 and ADA grievance protocol for students and staff. All of those are in the required policies. We also have F34, the flags on school property.
All right. Also, I understand, I saw a note from Mr. Kibbe that there's a CFG authorization that doesn't seem to be in our records. My memory of doing this notwithstanding, why don't we put that on?
I don't have the wording for it.
I think I'm right. Let's just put it on the agenda and see if the next several minutes we can discover the wording.
That's not the one we signed.
There are two boilerplate
Yeah, like I said,
things that we I put it on there for 12 years, but I don't exactly remember the wording.
well, let's see what we can
One
find.
authorizes the superintendent to
Right.
expend grant funds. And
That's the one I could swear we did earlier this spring, but I can't find it either. So I think let's just get it done.
We did do one, Jack.
Well,
Yeah.
like I said, I just can't find it in the record. So
well, you've done the,
I think we did the
you did LEAP.
We did LEAP.
Yeah.
Yes,
Leap
that's
is what we
different.
did.
That's so specialized.
So this is the one that was done August 11, 2001. So that was last year, and it's the resolution on ESSER and grant accounting and oversight.
I don't think that's what we're talking about. It's consolidated federal grant.
Well, grants are, so it's all grants. So this is the one that
Oh, it does say all and
shall not
or
expend or
all.
encumber monies received, blah, 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 blah. So this is your grant thing.
Okay, well, we'll
Take a look at it though.
let's put it on, and if we can't find that we're still fumbling on this, we'll do something discreet.
No, this isn't the one, actually.
All right,
So
are there
where did
any,
you want those on the agenda?
let's see, I'm gonna thank you, by the way, for
We don't-
doing my usual thing here. Let's put that as an unfinished old business, and let's put that as a 7,
It's
Oh.
A and that B,
yeah,
6A and
Six.
6B.
yeah. And I'm gonna ask you to remind me when time comes, because I'm a little fried today.
If I could just give a very brief, just report of what I have a team doing these last few days. would
I
be
think
great. So
that would be good in the superintendent's report. And also I want to add, we've got negotiations. Was there something
Where do you
else?
want-
Oh,
Where do you want superintendents first? or-
superintendents will be first, so everybody else can move down one.
Okay.
And, oh, and I want to talk very briefly about getting people on a combined building and grounds meeting, because I think we should be doing that as part of ESSER going forward.
Where do you want
And
that?
I'll have that at the after negotiations, because it was, I'll be asking for volunteers and then taking names for those people who feel to raise their hand. I think it's how that works. Pardon?
I thought that was on there.
Didn't we do the?
We need to actually have a specific wording on the motions, and I thought that we had that.
I
in there.
could've
So we would need to add that on.
All right, then we copy it, though again.
We did motions, we just need a certain language. used.
I will trust you on that, so let's just put that on as well. Let's just, knock these out one after the other, just so we get them done.
And is it possible to get the software on there?
Oh, yeah, I thought all this had gotten on there, Jack, I'm sorry. So
That's
one
all
more
right, it's,
Was,
so,
Unfinished business?
yes.
yes, is, the, software,
Does that need to be this meeting? Is this a special meeting? No.
Oh, it's money, so we may have an issue with that. We may have to put that, are we gonna be in trouble if we can't get it done this meeting? Can we wait till the next one?
Yes, sure.
Okay, let's have it wait till the next one, because it really, when we do money authorizations of that type, the copier stuff we've authorized like 15 times already, but but money for this, we've not, so that should be an agenda item, and I will remind everybody to make sure that it is, and there we go. All right, slightly larger new agenda. So we're adopting this without objection, I hope. Love the lack of objection. We're now on to communications and public comment. Do we have anybody online that would wish to speak this evening? Ricky, do you have anybody online that's chomping
I don't
to?
see anyone up there.
Okay, well then, we have silence. We're on to 5A, Superintendent's report. So, Mr. Superintendent. report.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the board know, so today I took a little hiatus to come down and do some work with the board and with the support staff, but for the last 2 days, but also today and then tomorrow, we have a team up at the Best Institute, which
I don't know if people know what that is.
yeah, I don't even know what that, the acronym. So let me, as I fumble through this, I'll look it up. But we have a group up there who is, so the Best Institute, and that's the term they use, and I don't know if it's an acronym, it's an opportunity for school teams of educators to share and learn strategies for improving, strengthening systems, data, and practices through multi-tiered systems of support. And so with a lot of the work we've been doing with restorative practices and responsive classroom and social emotional learning, we took 3 schools up there with the principal and the person who will be running their, each school's calling it a little different, Zen Den or their reboot room or a planning room, and calibrating, spending time calibrating behavior matrices and coming into that common, how are we going to address student issues? Is everything, let's suspend everybody, for whatever they're doing, or do we work through things and keep kids in school? And so it's been tremendous to spend that time just having people work through issues, coming up with these things, planning on how they're going to launch it to parents and explain it to parents, explain it to students, and also spend time, with teachers and getting everyone on board. So it's been really productive. I felt comfortable walking away today because the team was in really good space. Carrie Newton, our restorative practices coordinator, has been up there kind of guiding us. So some real powerful stuff. We're going to have one of these type of support systems for kids in every building this year moving forward. So we're really excited about it. And then what we also got an opportunity to do last night was to get a screening of the movie Listen Up, which is
I mentioned at the last meeting.
and
But that's about.
yeah, it's so it's a musical based on the lives of Vermont teens, and so what the movie is actually a film of one of the productions that they put on, and it was extremely moving. I kind of went in there like, okay, here's another musical, because that's how they were talking about it a
Because
little
they had
bit.
it, they had it at the theater. thing.
Yes, and I mean, I was almost in tears at the end because it was it really touched on a lot of the things that teens in Vermont, and it's very specific to Vermont, what teens in Vermont are going through. And what it was that the producer had gone around and interviewed teens throughout all of Vermont just before COVID and taken their narratives.
There are 800, I think they interviewed.
Is that it? That's right. And then took those narratives and wrote a screenplay or a musical. And then the kids collaborated on writing, on the music, and on writing the songs, and then on the production so it's all collaborative with students. And then at the end, they had the producer and they had 3 of the cast and did a Q&A, and it was incredible. And they offered up to come back to our area and possibly bring some students and do some screenings for, whether we do another community night at the Colonial or do something here. And so it was just really, really, it was really cool to hear that student voice. So that's all I got right now.
Thank you. Just, not everybody's new, but not everybody's been here a while, and multi-tiered systems of support is one of those fun acronyms.
Well, that's why I didn't say MTSS, but
Well, but it's still, it's still
So a multi-tiered systems of support is the idea that not every student has the same needs at all the exact same times. And we're talking academics, and we're also talking emotionally or behaviorally. And so we talk in tiers, but it's really about layers. But I'll just use the tiers because that's the term being used. And so a tier 1 is kind of like the universal, what everybody gets. So if we're going to do a reader, everyone's going to use that same reader. Everyone's going to be introduced to mathematics the exact same way. So we have that universal. And then using data, teachers and teams look at students and see if there's a student who needs a little bit more, they circle back around and they provide. That's the tier 2, right? So we're giving additional level of support, maybe in a small group. This is all in the classroom. And then a tier 3 is when we've seen that student needs that really individualized one-on-one. And so sometimes that could look like a title teacher working with that student at that time. That could be a special educator working with that student, but we haven't even gotten into a student's IEP. So I want to be clear about that. This is a regular ed initiative. And we look at behavior the same way, that every student's expected to be in their seat, every student's supposed to be that. But if a student maybe needs a fidget chair, or a student needs a fidget thing to kind of work, and if that's all they need to stay focused, we provide that. Or if the student needs to go to the quiet corner, where they can maybe go and they can still be in class, still doing their work, but they're just not in their desk. Those are the tier 2s. And what it is using data, you're looking at students and you're saying, okay, hey, we're noticing that in mathematics, when you really struggle, we're also seeing these high levels of behavior. So we're going to adjust what we do in mathematics, and we're going to bring the behaviors down. And so by making the adjustment in mathematics or providing that more support, we bring that behavior down, keep the student in the class, students not out. But in English language arts, student doesn't need any support. So we don't need to provide that level of support during that time. And so it's very fluid. And that's why I talk about layers, because I think of it as like when you're in a play, a musical production, and you've got the spotlight and you put the yellow light, and then you add a green, and now you got blue, right? And so we can change our lens focus with a student. And the whole idea is not to provide it all the time, is to provide it when the student needs it, and then to withdraw so that student can be successful. So.
Gotcha. All right, thank you very much.
Andy, can I ask,
Go ahead.
if there's
This
a
is
source
follow-up
that
time.
someone can, in other words, where could one look at this in more depth?
For multi-tiered systems of support. So the state has a great website.
Okay.
And I can get that for you, but
That would be great. If you
but
could
if
get it, I'd love to.
yeah, and then they also have a PBIS, because BEST is also a part of PBIS, which is Positive Behavior Intervention Strategies.
Yeah,
And so those two kind of go together with
okay,
that. So
that's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you again. Are there any questions from the folks in the gallery? And as is the case for these types of meetings, I don't always see you, especially if you're blacked out. So you can just pipe up and ask a question and everyone's going to object. Moving on to the next item.
State of pre-K presentation.
Yes, state of pre-K presentation.
Hi, that's me.
That is you.
I'm Jennifer Keenan, and I am the Wyndham Northeast Early Ed pre-K
We're gonna say,
program
yeah.
principal. That's what I am. Long tail. And I, once a year, like to come and sort of let everyone know here how it's going in the preschool and what our numbers are. I thought I would start with sort of who I am and what I do. I have two preschool classrooms, one in Central Elementary and one in Westminster Center School. They're both hosted in those schools. I teach 25 hours a week in the Central Elementary classroom, and I have a teacher who teaches in the Westminster Center classroom. We also have three paraprofessionals on staff, one tied to each classroom and one floats to support as needed, to provide substitute teaching or to give me time to do the other parts of my job sometimes, although this year it was mostly just to provide support in the classroom. We were all hands on deck this year. Our pre-K program was started in 2002. I was hired in 2002 to open it up, and we are funded almost entirely with the Medicaid reimbursement money. We've had classrooms, we had a classroom in the YMCA building, and then we went to the Cherry Hill building. Now we're in Central Elementary. We had a classroom in the Athens Elementary School for a while. We also had a classroom in the, I call it the White Church in Grafton. I'm sure it's got the one next to the foundation in the basement there. But right now we have just the two. I have here some of the numbers.
You want me to throw those up, Jennifer?
What?
You want me to put those up?
Sure.
Or when you tell
One
me
more,
when.
I'll tell you, one more piece, not one more. A piece of my job, beyond the running the school, running our public preschool, the Wyndham Northeast Early Ed Center, is I'm administrator for the Universal Pre-K program in Vermont. Every 3, 4, and 5-year-old is entitled to 10 free hours of public preschool. That can be delivered in a school, like public school, or in a private program.
Right.
The state decides who those private programs are based on their quality. And then families who want to use the private programs register with us, and you get their residency checked and all those things. And then the programs bill the school districts for 10 hours preschool per week for the 35 weeks that school is in session. And, that's something that I also am the administrator of. This piece of paper that I handed out, which Andy has, you can throw it up on the screen, is this year's numbers as of May 30th. On the top, I've got what happened like 21-22 school year in the public sites. We had 34 students, 15 were Rockingham, 15 were Westminster, 2 Athens, 2 Grafton. Last year, the numbers were smaller, and I put in red the number of students who had registered, and then just over the, I can't believe I heard it's right. I know.
Well, there was a game going on.
There was a game.
If we lose you folks, it's not because we don't value you, it's probably because the lights went out, so just bear in mind.
I thought it was important for the 2021 school year just to sort of make note of there was 18 families who in the course of the summer were registered and ready to go, but dropped out for all different COVID. I mean, I just wrote COVID reasons because they were all separate. It was 18 different stories, but they all had COVID at the core.
30 attendance.
30 attendance. So that would have been up there. It would have been 48.
And it does appear that post-COVID, you're still affected by that.
I am.
Yeah.
We definitely are, and we've made, in the public sites, we made an alteration to the way the program runs this year with Andy's support. We spread our youngest students out. So they had, our typical model is the older students get 3 days, older 4-year-olds get 3 days of pre-K, and the 3-year-olds get 2 days. And what we did was we spread out the 3-year-olds they had 2 days with me and 2 days in Westminster. And these families drove their kids to 2 different schools. It was really amazing. They pulled together, but they really see the value in preschool, so they did it. The Westminster Classroom was modeled on the Bellas Falls Classroom, which was the pilot one. And the teacher there and I have worked together for many years, so we have a lot of very similar things. So while we're different people, the songs we sing at transition and the way we do curriculum and all that stuff is the same. So we weren't so worried about the kids being in a different thing. So that's what we did last year with having such a, the 34 students, you just gave them more. Good idea. And next year, in the public sites, I'm still on the public sites, the numbers look like they still might be low. So what we've decided to do is, again, offer more, but not pull it out of our hats in the fall. We have built it in that we have 30, we have 6, we have 33 slots. Most of them are 5 days. And we've told families that at each big vacation break, if more kids have shown up, we will switch over to the 3 and 2, so we could accommodate more. So, and the parents are like, 5 days? And have signed on for that, knowing that maybe a whole bunch of students will show up this summer, and I'll tell them before September that I'm sorry, we're going to 3 and 2, or before the Thanksgiving break in November, before the December break, February and April. But at least until those students reappear, we can give the ones that we have as much pre-K as we can. Does anyone-
Any questions?
Yeah, question.
Folks here? Good.
How do you think it looks, or maybe there's no way it could happen, but how do we get those 5 days for all those kids?
That's a really good question, Molly.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
but
it's not on the spot. Well,
I
one of the
imagine that you
things
must
is
think
we've
about
been-
that,
oh,
'cause
yes, well,
you act like you're very passionate about what you do, and you know, it was a long time ago, but I can remember how hard it was to, know you had your child in a safe space.
Yes, it's, I am very passionate. I've heard that before from people. One of the things that the ESSER committee has done, and this is taking this sidestep, is we've gotten concept approval from the state to build a pre-K building, which will allow us to have full day, full time, 5 days a week, which would be great for not only the concept that got approved and is not only for the 3, 4, and 5-year-old preschoolers, but for the infants and toddlers.
Jen, but that will also still allow parents to have a shortened day as well.
Yes, all of those tiny little, which aren't tiny, they're huge, bits and pieces are all a little further out. But some families don't want or don't need 5 days a week. I know when my children were in pre-K, I wanted, 3 mornings a week, and that's all I wanted. And indeed, in our plan for next year that we put in place for, since we have the reduced numbers, we have 20 5-day slots, and we have 6 2-day slots. And we've got people who want the 2-day slots. These are their 3-year-olds. They're tiny children, and they don't want them in school 5 days. They want part day, part week. And families need to have those choices. They know their children and they know what they want.
Got a couple questions.
Mhm.
And I encourage folks who are remote here tonight to ask them too. Now, we served as a maximum 131 kids. That was, if I'm looking at this right.
That's public and pre-K.
Yeah,
Right.
but I'm
And
just saying that still, we got 131 served. We know generally that we look at, classes and combined class that each year cohort of 1 year students about, somewhere between 70 and 80 kids. So doing quick math, we've got 131 out of what, 200 and 225, 250 that could be served. Is that, how many people are out there in terms of
How big was this?
how big is our potential, how big is the potential body of young people that could be served if everybody that had a kid showed up?
That's an interesting question also.
That's intended to
What was the graduating class at the high school this year?
74.
be.
74.
Yeah, and that, I think
And-
that's pretty much,
Right.
70,
Right.
80 has been,
And these numbers, so if you look on the bottom of my chart, I've
Yeah.
got the private tuition students that the districts are paying for are in the middle.
Yep.
And on the bottom are the totals. So this year, 100 students total, 21, 22,
Mhm.
got universal pre-K, which is both my program and the private program.
Right.
So that's 70 kids. If we're pretending that there's the same number all the way up.
and but those are over a couple of years. It's not
Well,
just
the
4-year-olds.
pre-K is 3 and
Just
4.
3 and
It's
4,
2.
so
So
that's 2 years.
divided in half. In general, parents, it's my experience that parents of 3-year-olds don't always jump into preschool. I
Yep.
tend to always have more 4-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
To answer your specific question, I'm not sure how many kids there are out there that haven't come to preschool.
So I think one of the things, if I can jump in, I think one of the things that happened was we used to have a person that was dedicated
Right.
to
Finding kids.
I
to
was getting
finding kids and
I
doing
was
those
winded
things.
up to it.
That's where this was headed.
The previous administration made a decision to move in a different direction.
So,
And
Okay.
we moved this year to look to bring some of that back. And we're looking to expand with some of the work. The person was split doing a couple of different jobs and it really needs someone who's dedicated, who's out there knocking on doors, going to play groups. You see a baby, hey, where do you live?
Right.
Kind of thing, right? Like, yeah. Well, we like to use a more positive word, Molly, than stalker, but
Thank you,
essentially,
Molly. Well, that's real helpful.
but essentially, I think it fits in with the whole larger idea of we need to get kids in preschool because, we know that if we can start working with them, then it's going to affect them years down the road. So, but that is the general perception is to get back to having that stalker.
Well,
Drum up.
Actually informing people
Yeah.
about the
We're gonna
possibilities.
find a better word for that. aren't we?
Well, so when the position was a 40 hours a week, purely pre-K position, they had 3 playgroups a week. They had knocking on doors. I mean, I can admit to meeting people on the street and oohing and eyeing over their baby and asking them their names and where do you live all the time. So, because we have a database that goes all the way back to just born. And we're trying to have that database be as accurate as possible. And right now, since COVID made playgroups go away, which would have happened regardless, we'd have that position because they were indoors. But also with the position being gone, there's just less sort of knocking on doors out there. The other thing that the person in that position did was they went to all of the private programs around, and not just the ones that meet the state requirement for UBK, the home programs.
Yeah.
And sort of once every 2 weeks spent at least an hour in each program. So then you have a relationship with the other providers there. Oh, Bobby was here last week. Where's Bobby this week? Oh, Bobby moved to Springfield or Rhode Island or something. And then all of that information we end up having, and also building a relationship with the parents who are dropping off and picking up, with the programs and all of that.
Here's my bottom line. We're looking at a major initiative using ESSER money and whatever we can persuade Bernie to give us and, whatever else might be available to build out a for real program. We hear anecdotally, at least I do all the time, about young parents saying that just how difficult it is to find the type of care they need for their kids because they like to go back to work. It's a real productivity thing for people, and it's these days a real economic necessity in inflation days. So I'm hoping that somewhere at the end of whatever this undefined process is, we have, the equivalent of a business plan. It says, here is what we think we can do. Here are the people we think we can serve. Here are the folks that whose needs aren't being met. We've talked to people and they say, we need X, and therefore we plan to provide Y, we'll pay for it this way. Because, I'm gonna give this off to people like Hardy and Chris at some point and say, I want somebody to chew on this and see if it works. And the time is coming faster than I think people appreciate. I'm getting a little panicky about being ready for that. So this is why I'm asking, do we even have basic information about the population we could be serving?
I would not at my fingertips right now.
That's it. I'm not
But yes,
asking.
I think we do.
This is
have
not a
the
quiz.
No, I know it's not. I think we do have the basic information, and I completely agree that we need to start moving, and that would include a business plan for this grand vision that I'm, needless to say, fully
If you
support of.
need to find, if you guys need, somebody to work with that does this kind of stuff, I've got some folks that have done it elsewhere that I know of, so
That's
don't
good to know.
hesitate. But I think you need to make certain that it's real, that we can actually pull it off, and that, we're meeting our service obligations, really helping the community, young people live here, which is a problem, and that we can actually afford it.
Right. I would agree with all of those things.
So one of the other things too, if we end up with, a spot for 100 kids and we only end up with 85, as long as after we've serviced the kiddos in our district, there's no reason why we can't open it up to, there's other towns very close to us with the same problem that we have.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Our food service model may be the model
know,
when we go,
you know,
and I'm looking
I
for
would
that.
go bigger, go home and try to make it just to the size it's gonna service us, because, there's nothing out there, and, we hear it when we try to hire people, we can't develop the right hours sometimes to try to help somebody get back to work because they just can't find a place
For their kid.
for
Yeah.
their
Right.
child to be, that they feel safe.
Mhm.
And so, there's a lot of different levels of this, but, if a mother has to get back to work in 8 weeks and needs to leave her infant, does she leave her with somebody that, she doesn't really know, with a whole bunch of other kids in one room in the living room, or does she leave them in a place where it's designed to take care of all these levels? And, that's, I wouldn't have thought twice if that was available when my daughter was younger, because, it just made sense.
Right, you can't be an efficient and effective worker if you're worried about your child.
Well,
You just can't.
we've had a bit of a break in that. A lot of mostly middle class administrative folks have had the option of working at home. But that's an option that is being eroded by the hour. I'm watching it in real time. And the folks who need this the most tend to be folks who are public facing employees, and they don't have these options.
We just approved a leave of absence for another year for a teacher who has no place to put her child.
So
It's out there. It's affecting our district from
Yeah.
all different
So
aspects.
Molly, in the plan for the ESSER plan, this sort of, to me, it's a little bit of a sidestep from what the current pre-K thing, but our plan always was to have students from other towns. And because we were going to have it be tuition, whoever can pay tuition can come.
Right.
And also the universal pre-K piece, the 10 hours, 35 weeks, children can take that money anywhere. So we have a Rockingham family who's registered at Putney Central Schools preschool next year. And so that we're going to be paying Putney Central for a Rockingham student whose family has chosen. I mean, you can send it anywhere, which is great. It allows the families to have choice. Can I briefly talk about the tuition increase?
Yes, I do want to be mindful of time because I brought people in on short notice tonight, so
So the private tuition piece, which on the bottom, that this year, the statewide tuition rate was $3,536 per year. We pay quarterly, and we paid that tuition for 66 students, and it's broken out by town. And I also broke out the money by town in
Yeah.
the lower
yeah.
corner. So Rockingham paid $144,976 in tuition to pre-K programs. That money may not be perfectly exact because someone might have left 2 weeks early or joined 2 weeks
Right,
late, and it
right.
breaks out to $101.02 a week.
Okay.
So for 66 students, that's tuition from SU districts for $233,376. And I predict that next year will be about the same number, except the tuition rate goes up, which is also there on the left. It goes up to 3,656.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's all.
Thank you.
That's all.
We should do something similar for special ed.
We will.
Okay.
And what we kind of was building up to it, right? So I knew we had the ESSER piece with the early childhood center. So it was like, so let's get Jennifer in and then we'll get
I
Stacy
appreciate
in.
that.
So we will be giving you regular updates from the departments.
Excellent. So it is 10 past the hour. What we got next here?
Finance committee.
Finance committee. You all met now a couple of times. You want to tell people what we've been
Very
doing?
briefly, so we met, I think we talked about the first meeting. We last met on the 22nd of June. We had a good presentation from Harley, whose last name
Sterling.
Sterling. Harley Sterling, who I thought did a really excellent, did a great job of explaining a very complicated system and where we sort of sit with school meals. And Harley's point was, I think, well taken, is that there hasn't been a typical year yet in the time he's been doing this. He started off.
Startup year.
It was a startup year, and then there was COVID, and then there was COVID, and then there was whatever happened this year. But so next year, and this is probably worth saying because the reformer had wrong information in it the other day.
Susan, did you hear that?
It carried a national article about parents trying to figure out how they're going to pay for school lunches.
Yeah.
And
Unhelpful.
it didn't happen to mention that Vermont is paying,
Right.
the legislature figured out a way to do that. One of the important things to remember, though, is that it's free for parents. We in the school district have a portion that we're still trying to figure out how to get reimbursed for and to pick up. So, but parents should know, who are out there, that for this coming year at least, school lunch is free again. So right now, there's a bit of a surplus of cash. But and you can carry that forward. But it's really hard to tell what's going to happen in the future. And I mean, the one thing, and this is my comment, that you can say is there will be a school lunch program because we're required to have one.
Well, I think it's also worth saying, I mean, it just was there for a portion of it, that wouldn't be true to say that we're the school lunch program, we can carry a surplus, which is sort of the headline for
For a
me.
little while, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that A, and B, the program has been tracking pretty, actually ahead of our original fiscal estimates. 'Cause
Yes.
we originally thought this was going to be a financial sink that we were going to have trouble carrying, and well, it's still a bit of one. It's not the size that we initially projected.
Right, he is, we're still going on the assessment that was set up back in 2018, which was a total of $180,000 for all the districts. And that's worked so far. Another piece we talked about is that when we do budgeting this fall, we should look at that again and see how things are going and see if that's still a realistic number to put in and assess as an assessment. So I think it's pretty fluid.
We still have we'll have at least a couple months under our belt. to see
Yeah,
where we're at.
yeah. The rest of the meeting, I guess I spent blathering about where all the assessments that are charged back to the districts came from and how they arose from statute and from consolidation of transportation, consolidation of special education, and why they exist and why they have to exist. And I was either clear or not, I don't know. Our next meeting is on July 13th, 2:00 at the SU, and I'm kind of thinking transportation should be the topic for that one.
And I do want you to be active with the folks developing this early ed program,
Yeah,
at the earliest possible point. 'Cause
Well, that's coming-
That's the one that scares me
that's
the
one
most.
that we need to talk about, but I'm not,
Not
I
ready.
think it would be nice to have a business plan to kind of look at with the finance committee.
You might have to give folks a spec on what the business plan looks like, 'cause I'm not sure how common
Right.
that is.
We've been working on one, so I mean, I don't think we're
Yeah, they're not far off.
not
Okay,
far off,
okay.
so it's.
There are numerous other topics that have been identified, including what's the impact of Act 173, the
So
special
there's
ed.
the other one. Yeah.
I'm not sure if we know enough yet to have a report back on that.
I'll give you a little if you want right now, or.
Well, no,
Again, I'm
I'm talking
gonna,
about the finance.
Yeah.
I'm gonna poke at the time. Hardy, you were there. Do you have anything to add to this summary?
No, I think Chris covered it pretty well. And I think we're all a lot clearer on the assessments and the food program, which I had nothing about until that meeting.
Very good. All right. Thank you all.
Could I just, because we mentioned the food nutrition program?
Sure.
Today, we began, the Farm to School Cafe began handing out food kits, and they'll be doing it all summer long. And it's here at the high school from 1 to 3. And so families can sign up just to make sure we have enough. But we'll put a robocall out every Tuesday, but we encourage it's free meal kits for all children 18 and under.
So this is coming out like a CSA, or would you say farm to table? How does this, or is this basically meals?
They are meal kits for families. We did it all last summer.
Right. Is that
Yeah.
same thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the same thing, so.
Okay.
Who should they call to set that up with or check in if they want to?
They can call the SU. There is a link that we sent out in our email, but we can get them set up if they need help, so.
Good.
You send them an email.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about something that's almost as much fun, negotiations, and this may be very brief.
Cheryl, she's
Cheryl, do you have anything we can talk about tonight, or are we at a point where we need to wait, or do we have?
No, we absolutely have a report. I'm happy to give it. I'm the spokesperson for the negotiations committee representing the board. I'd like to acknowledge the board committee members who were there today at our meeting from 10 this morning until about 3 this afternoon. And that board committee, again, actually met last Friday for several hours. I would say it was from 1 to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And this is after months of going back and forth with the negotiations team. So I'm going to acknowledge the board committee. I'm going to acknowledge the support team and just provide their names for the record. So for the board committee, Priscilla Lambert, Jack Breyer, Deb Wright, and June Streeter, plus myself, obviously. The WNEA support staff negotiations team, facilitated by Kate Kane, representing the union, second grade teacher at Central Elementary, and then Judy Cray, Lisa Harmon, Bridget Maxfield, Cindy Stockwell, and then representing a new category now in the collective bargaining agreement this year, Tara Darrell, who's with us tonight. So meeting for, again, these many months and going back and forth in true negotiation fashion. We actually reached an agreement today, and that will then next go through the incorporating all of the recommendations and decisions that we agreed upon. That document will then be reviewed by all of the committee members. So because there are a lot of moving parts to it, and we want to make sure that we're completely accurate in what we documented. But then after we get to an agreement, which I believe we will, since we talked it through at great length, each of these items, it will then go to the NEA, to the union groups for their approval. If it comes back from them approved, then we each take it to our respective boards for their approval. Andy was with us, of course, and has been with us throughout this process. We were able to agree on terms for a 4-year agreement. I'll add for the benefit of all that one reason we proposed that rather than a 3-year was to get the support staff off the same cycle as the teachers, because historically it's tended that the teacher negotiations have gone on for a long time, often kind of leaving a lot of people a little short on that, being able to address the support staff. So now we're in a rotation cycle where we'll next address the teacher negotiations process 3 years from now, and next address the support staff 4 years from now, and attempt to repeat that alternating cycle. I think any additional details we don't need to share right now.
That's fine. I did think it was important people heard that we have that. I would assume it would come to this board since a lot also, and in fact, probably had it as the first pass at it, since a lot of our folks are SU employees.
I want to add too, Jack, that whereas all the board committee members were able to be with us on Friday, today it was 3 of us who were there.
Yes, one of us was definitely absent.
for other reasons. But all the board committee members were instrumentally involved throughout the process. So I want to thank everybody. And again, I want to thank all the support staff team. They were very thoughtful. And again, we went back and forth. This was real negotiation. So
getting this done after years of really kind of unnecessary confrontation and getting us on this has been a major goal, at least personal one of mine, to get the support of negotiations and the teacher negotiations on different years, so it doesn't feel like a long negotiation, the leftovers that are rushed at the end. And I'm delighted about this, so thank you.
Priscilla wants to say something, and then I want to make one more comment.
I just wanted to recognize publicly how much extra work Cheryl did in supporting the negotiations. I could tell from the documents that she sent to us that she had reviewed and had prepared for us that she spent many, many, many hours doing that, and she should be applauded for everything that she did.
It's a team effort for sure.
Oh,
And the last thing I wanted to acknowledge is the date. This being June 29 and our budget year closing on June 30, we're of course delighted, and with our Director of Finance's assistance as well, that we're able to get this all done before the close of this fiscal year.
Getting this worked out keeps us from getting money hung up over the fiscal year hump, and that was another big item. Thank you. And yeah, I actually agree emphatically with Priscilla. Cheryl, I knew Cheryl was superbly organized and a good basic manager, but I don't think any of us were quite prepared with how well she handled this. And this has been a terribly contentious and unpleasant process for all parties in the past, and it wasn't and it's largely due to her keeping everybody, including those of us who like to talk a lot, kind of quiet when we need to be quiet, let it get it done, I think. So thank you again.
Thank you, everybody.
That's awesome.
Moving on.
Building and grounds.
Yeah, we have this thing called ESSER, and we have a facility ourselves. It's going to be pulled into discussions about what we do about the preschool, which is also an SU thing. And this means that we need to get the get our own B&G committee going. We really didn't at the beginning of the year. We really need to do it now. What I'd like to do is to have at least the chairs, if not the teams at the various district boards involved in it. And what happened to Molly? Because I was about to tell her she was chair of that.
She must have.
Did she hear ahead of time to run off? Because
She left her glasses, so we. know
okay,
she's-
well, when she comes back, we're going to tell her she's chair of the Building and the Grounds Committee.
I'll make a little.
We're gonna make a note of that for her.
For quorum, too,
And
because
we'll,
she's high school.
only until we have a vote, then we can get away. You
I'm
can,
just telling you.
but
you
no,
can't vote on anything.
don't suggest the absence of a quorum, please, because I want to get this meeting done.
No, she just needs to come back for a
Yes.
vote.
So, but that's how I would like to do it. If people think we need to have any, yes. But would you pass this down so she knows what just happened to her while she was out? It really is important that we get this process moving because each of the individual buildings individual districts are in some ways competing for ESSER money as well as they're cooperating for it. So we really should have some idea as to what a unified plan looks like for all districts. Yeah.
So we each of our school districts had appointed one or more people to be
Right.
on it. And so at this point, might we, I know, ask those persons to step on to.
That's exactly my hope is that they would step on, and that Molly did a very good job for us actually finding a facility that we have to house the SU team currently. And she also knows more. She's forgotten more about construction facilities. Most of us know. She seems like a logical.
Jack, I'm not sure that all of the boards did, for the simple reason that the WNESU usually does not have any buildings and grounds to take care of. So I think we might need to look at that at our next meetings.
Well, like I said, we had a B&G team. It was when we got the facility in Westminster, I was on it. Molly was on it. The chair of the Rock board at the time was on it. There was essentially one from each board, and most of them also were pinch hitting as building and grounds folks from their respective districts. And I think that model worked, and I'd like to try it. If it doesn't, if people feel like we need to expand it, great. But like I said, it's mostly because the ESSER process and some of the plans we've talked about involve both preschool and eventually perhaps the housing the SU staff. So I'd like us to get rocking and rolling on that, so we're not at a point where we have to make a move and we're running around, because that's kind of what happened the last time. Not having it happen again.
Thank you for clarifying that. We can use that as a model.
All righty. So is that it on that, on the committees? Oh, great. What are we on to next?
Old unfinished business policies.
So this is definitely yours.
Thank you, Jack. As I said, the policies that we're meaning to look at tonight are C10, prevention of harassment, hazing, and bullying of students. C10P, which is the procedures on the prevention of the harassment, hazing, and bullying. C11, student freedom of expression on school-sponsored media. C12, prevention of sexual harassment as prohibited by Title IX. C14, policy on Section 504 and ADA grievance protocol for students and staff. F34, flags on school property. And I would make a motion that we adopt those 6 policies.
All right. Are there any questions about those? I understood there were some questions raised about it in an article in the Reformer the other day. Are there any questions that here and that anybody wants to talk about or ask questions about?
I would like to make a motion
Yeah.
to approve the
We
policies
did
listed.
already.
Okay, I missed it. All
But
right,
this is the
Just
Essentially.
discussion.
I didn't want any more
Yeah.
discussion, I guess.
There was a second, right? And then we did discussion. So we have a question. Needed-
All right, I move the question.
Small Robert's rules of order. I got it.
All right, so the question has been moved to adopt the whole pile of policies listed here. And is there any, well, there can't be discussion because we moved the question. So all in
No, we
favor?
have to
Oh.
vote on the moving the question then, I think.
Oh.
Because if you're cutting off
Without,
discussion, you have to.
you move the question without objection, is I think how the term was. If there's objection, then we have to have a vote.
You still have to have a vote because you're cutting off discussion. on
Then
small.
my gosh, let's have that
So
vote.
let's not
Let's-
not move the
let's-
question. Let's have Molly withdraw that.
You could
Do you mind if you
your
withdraw
motion.
that, Molly? Then we don't have to worry.
All right.
He can go ahead.
I'm gonna
So you're gonna
suggest
end
there seems to sense, and I will, without objection, we will move to a vote unless there is a wish to discuss these items. Is there a wish to discuss these items by anyone? I'm seeing a distinct lack of enthusiasm. So all in favor of these, I'm going to do a roll call because we have members remote. So we're going to start with our remote members. Mr. Merrill, what say you? on the
Yes.
question? Teen, what say you?
Yes.
All right. Excuse me. Moving from my right, Molly Bannock, what say you?
Yes.
Cheryl Charles.
Yes.
Next is
Karen.
Karen.
Yeah, Karen Blanchard.
I know, I
Yes.
just sometimes it's.
You don't know. me
There are a
with my
lot of
mask
senior
on, I
moments
just-
happening since babysitting week, so sorry. Give me a week to recover. I'll be better at this.
No, it's great.
Good
I
job.
appreciate it. That's fine, Jack. I said yes.
All right, Priscilla,
Yes.
I'm gonna say yes. How about you, Chris?
Yes.
And it's unanimous, and how
And then-
happy are we?
But we didn't.
We got
We got Teen, we got Hardy.
Oh, Hardy's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else, where else are we next here?
Grant funds.
Okay, grant funds, and this is
I was
the,
unable to.
I have been.
oh my gosh.
No, because
It's been brought to our attention that we can't seem to find what I still think was a prior approval of these CFG funds, but I have someone who has the exact wording of the motions we need. and
Thanks
He's
to-
going to do that.
thanks to Ricky, by the way.
All right.
Yeah, so there are 3 motions. I'll tell you them all. I mean, they're boilerplate. but
Okay.
Anyway, the first one is to authorize the supervisory union to apply for, receive, and administer and distribute grants. That's important because you need,
Right.
you're bringing in a lot of money and you need to authorize ourselves to do it.
Yep.
Number 2 is to authorize the superintendent or designee to sign state and federal contracts, which was a more recent requirement, but what this allows Andy or his designees to do is to sign, say, a contract with a professional development provider or somebody that you're employing through the grants without bringing them each time to the board, because you would have to bring, if you don't have this, you should be bringing them to the board.
Right.
And the last one was to authorize the superintendent to sign supervisory union staff and professional service contracts. So that just allows Andy to be the signatory for contracts
Yeah.
and staff, especially staff contracts.
I'm going to ask you, since we can't have three motions on the floor at the
I'll do
same
them one at
time,
a time.
to do, well, actually, I was going to say to do a three-part motion. I don't think that's
Okay.
going to be.
If everybody's
Can I
okay with
ask a
that.
question before you do a motion? We have always had any licensed people brought to the board.
Yeah, that doesn't change.
Okay.
Yeah, remember, it was staff.
Okay.
Okay.
So this third one allows the superintendent to sign the staff contracts.
Just.
Yeah,
wanted to
it's
make
not
sure.
just grant money, it's also SU money, it's district money, not just
All right.
grant money. So it's a little different than the grant motions.
One just question, I hope I'm not muddying the water by asking it, probably am. It appears that that we have been given the option on certain contracts to change the amount that from.
I was gonna put that on our next agenda. 'Cause it's a
Okay.
money thing.
It is a money thing. This has.
So I wanted to make sure that we
Okay.
warned it properly. So I
Fine,
wrote it down so
all
that
right.
we would do that.
In a future meeting, we will be talking about changing the dollars for going out to bid on certain items, but that I will confuse matters, so we're not
Yeah.
putting it tonight.
Right.
All right. Is
Well,
it, go
With the
ahead.
chair's permission, let
Yes.
me group these, the first two, because they have to do with grants, and then the third one separately.
That works for me.
So the first two motions are to authorize the supervisory union to apply for, receive, administer, and distribute grants. And with that, to authorize the superintendent or designate to sign state and federal contracts.
Got it.
Let's take that chunk first.
All right. Is there any discussion on this? We could have some if you wanted to. Then I'm going to do a roll call because I'm not hearing much. Hardy, what say you?
Yes, approved.
Jean, what say you?
Yes.
Karen, what say you?
Yes.
Molly, what say you?
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Priscilla.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, looks like we've got unanimity on that.
Okay.
And you'll pass your document to,
Well, let's do the last
okay,
one. So I also move to authorize the superintendent to sign supervisory union staff and professional service contracts.
all right. Again, is there any interest in discussion about this?
Yeah, what does professional service cover?
It would,
That would be if we brought a professional development person in, or if we, like our BCBA, who is a contracted service. So it's not an employee of us, but we
Right.
sign a contract with them.
yeah, anybody who's not an
Just wanted
employee,
clarification.
right?
Sure.
For out there.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to do another roll call and I will start from my left. Mr. Kibbe, what
Yes.
say you? What
Yes.
say you? Karen, what say you?
Yes.
Cheryl? what
Yes.
say you? Molly?
Yes.
Hardy?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Looks like we've got unanimity all over the place tonight. All right, very good, thank you. So we got,
Leave of absence request.
Well, no, we have an old business with the copiers. We just need these motions read specifically.
yeah,
That wasn't put on here.
oh, that's right. Oh,
Sorry.
well, it was supposed to have been, sorry. If you would indulge.
Does that have to be the night?
Yeah, it kind of does.
All
I
right,
thought we,
so
I
we-
actually,
We mentioned that as
Yeah.
adjustments.
we have already authorized money a couple of times, but there's specific
There's specific
language
language
that apparently they want. And it doesn't materially affect the dollars. So I think it's proper for us to put it on as an amendment.
Then you need to get permission to add it because it's the middle of the meeting.
All right, I will ask permission, and unless there is objection, hearing no objection, let's add it.
Thank you.
I can dot my i's and cross my t's with the best of them, don't you worry.
I have the motions here if someone wants to do that.
Yeah, you've been good at reading motions. We're gonna have Chris do it.
Wow, they're monsters.
Yeah,
Okay,
Finance bank really wanted them on the minutes. So.
okay, so make sure Tara gets
yes.
a
Yeah.
copy so she
Yes.
can paste them in. Okay, motion one is I hereby move that the board, WNESU board, approve the proposed tax exempt lease with MST Government Leasing LLC for the purposes of leasing, refinancing, and funding photography equipment leases, including consultant fees and related costs of issuances of such leases in an amount not to exceed $207,188.67 and an interest rate of 3.490% per year through August 1st, 2026.
That was impressive. One question for Kim. Is that interest rate different than what we thought we were doing when we did this before?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I thought it was like 275, but maybe that was my wishful thinking. Okay,
You gave us permission to move forward as long as it didn't increase anything that we had discussed at that meeting. And that we would not have moved forward if it wasn't.
okay. Is there any discussion of this item? Because we discussed it to death the other time. All right, we're going to do another roll call. Hardy, what say you?
Yes.
Jean, what say you? Molly,
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Yes.
I did that on
I wonder
purpose
what's the
this
math.
time.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
there we go. So we have unanimity by unnamed members that I
There's
didn't.
another motion too.
Yeah. Okay.
A little shorter.
Okay,
A second, and this is authorizing the superintendent to sign on our behalf, basically. Is what it is. I hereby move that the WNSU board authorize the superintendent to execute and deliver the tax exempt lease with MST Government Leasing LLC on such terms and conditions discussed and provided to the board, and to execute and deliver any such documents required to execute the contract with Specialized Purchasing Consultants Incorporated.
there you go.
Saying
I didn't know if there might be more.
No, that's it.
No, there was, a lawyer was paid real money for that. Thank you.
Wasn't an English major, that's for sure.
No, you're supposed to be. Hardy, first, is there any discussion? Hearing none. Hardy, what say you?
Yes.
Dean, what say you?
Yes.
Molly?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And Mr. Kibbe?
Yes.
And we have unanimity once again. All right, so where are we? Thank you. Leave of absence request, the one that we knew that was on this agenda tonight. Who has that?
I'm pulling a blank on that. So I don't know of any leave of absence. I know of one that we're trying to get approved.
By who? Not us, apparently.
Was it a board member or employee?
Was the leave of absence, was at the high school instead?
could have been
Because
carried
we-
over.
That's what
So
happens.
we don't have a
That's
leave
what
of
happens when we cut.
we don't have a leave of absence to bring to you tonight. So I do
Okay.
apologize.
No, that's fine. All right. So that's done. We're on to resignation.
No appointments.
I have an appointment, not a resignation.
Okay. Student Services Special Ed, Tristan, what, Onesie?
Onesie.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Tristan Tristan's been a paraprofessional for us for quite a few years, and her passion has been to become a special educator. And she's enrolled in a licensure program at this time, and it will take her 2 years to complete. But we have been really excited about the work she has done for us and what we believe she would bring to us. We're hoping to have you appoint her as a special educator for us. She would be a bachelor's step 4.
All right. Just because this is something I'm going to be asking, and boards used to ask. Going forward, it would be really nice if we got a resume with these things, if just because people like to be able to read what it is, read the background of the person they're approving. I'm not going to insist on that tonight, but I've mentioned in the past, and I really do want to emphasize that as a to do.
I will make sure you always have a resume.
Thank you very much. Not so I'm picky, but I think that we're spending money and we should have it on the record what we're spending it on and who we're spending it on. I think we need a motion to approve.
I would move that we appoint Tristan Onesie as a special educator at a BS +4,
All right. Any discussion? Cheryl, I see your hand.
which
up.
is the beginning step.
Right, that is the first step. I just wanted clarification about the concept that she's enrolled in a licensure program and she doesn't need to be licensed in order to serve in this role.
Thank you for the clarification. So we
Yeah.
would be, she would be under a provisional license. We would apply for a provisional license. We've already checked with the state prior to coming here before you to make sure that the program that she's going through is approved by the state, and she would need to complete that in 2 years.
All right.
So her degree, her current degree isn't in special ed, and this program she's going through now would qualify her. You're proposing that she be
For a
given the
certification
provisional.
in special education, yes.
Okay, that makes
She-
sense. Thank you.
She already has a bachelor's, is what you're
Correct.
saying. What is her
Correct. We
bachelor's
wouldn't be
in?
able to offer her,
What is her bachelor's in?
I don't have that in front of me.
Hence
hence that-
that business about the resume. Yep, there you go.
I have to say,
Yes.
I know Tristan as a parent. I don't, and she is exceptionally thoughtful. I think she'd be a really wonderful person to have as a special educator in our district.
I also really want us to be able to encourage paras to go on, get additional training and consider becoming part of our our professional team in this way. So
So I have a resume.
there you go. All right.
Well done.
So she has a BA in environmental science with a minor in early childhood education. She has a Bachelor of Science in environmental science, so a second one from a different college. Oh, I'm sorry, she'd gone to College of Atlantic. She finished at Eastern Connecticut State. And then she started taking coursework at Central Connecticut State in a master's program for early childhood education. She hasn't completed that, so this would complete her out. So she has a bachelor's degree in environmental science with a minor in early childhood education.
I hear environmental science can be a very useful degree. All right.
Minor in early childhood
Yeah.
is even easier.
Yeah, I know. I'm not-
More in line with
I'm
it.
that doesn't be facetious,
How
sorry.
far along is she in the master's program?
It was a while ago she had begun it. If I'm looking at her experience and whatnot, it seems like maybe some things, home things drew her away from not being able to complete the master's, but that's why she's able to do this program that she's looking at. So she wouldn't be doing a program through Central Connecticut, it's through Vermont Higher Ed Collaborative.
The collaborative. And is she just starting that, or is she
Yes, it's a 2-year program, so she would just be, she might have already begun it this past spring. But she had spoken to me about it and spoken at length with Stacy about it.
But you've already cleared.
We've already
cleared with the state.
We already checked with the state to make sure that
Okay,
the timeline and everything would match up so that we're not floating a provisional that would not be complete.
okay. All good questions. Are there any other questions? Hearing no other questions, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve. We've done, I had to get the motion on the floor to get the vote out. Hardy, what say you?
Yes.
Teen, what say you?
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Priscilla,
Yes.
Mr. Kibbe.
Yes.
And we have unanimity on that as well. So where are we now?
Others, if we have any other resignations and appointments, I don't think we do, but
All right. And if we don't, then we're on to that exciting area known as director's comments. Item 9, if I'm correct, right? So do we have any director's comments? We'll start with Hardy.
I don't have any tonight. Thank you.
All right, Teen,
Nope, none tonight.
Molly,
No, thank you.
Cheryl,
None from me either.
Karen,
None from me.
such a quiet group. I'm shocked. Priscilla,
I'm going to comment
There you
because I
go.
think somebody needs to. I really enjoy evenings like this when the board is so congenial. And I think that's something that we all work really hard to do. And as the more that we can get that out into the community, the more that we can get our students to working that way, the more that we can impress on them that every person is valuable and every person that they come in contact with needs that care and consideration. I think that's one reason our schools are successful in comparison to other schools around. Thanks.
Beautiful.
thank you. Mr. Kibbe. I know, top that.
I wanted to thank the negotiating committee for all their work, and especially Cheryl for that and many other things you have done over the course of the past few years. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm just going to touch on something that doesn't seem to be all that clear in the public record the other day. And we've had a lot of discussion about things that are not education, but are important symbols to people for a whole variety of reasons. And flags tends to be one of those. There was some confusion in the press and confusion generally about motion that we have to, that we've also adopted to have 2 flags, the US standard and the Vermont standard flown. There was some belief that that was due to hostility to folks who are underrepresented in our community, the visible minorities that are often marginalized in this country. And I want to be very clear, this was legal advice, good legal advice, including advice from one of our members who is a lawyer, saying that the Supreme Court was going to approve a doctrine that said that if you adopt any flags other than those 2, that literally anybody could come before you and demand to have their flag flown too. Examples of the Gadsden flag, the white supremacy flag, and the flying spaghetti monster flag, which apparently is a real thing. And so it makes sense that we adopt this to set the standard so that we don't deal with that kind of nuisance and not for any other reason. I've worked with every board in our district, and these are wonderful people. They're humane, caring individuals that I'm proud to know. And this is an inclusive district. This is a district where all are welcome. And I don't want anybody to ever think that that isn't the unanimous view of our members, because I've talked to them all, and I can assure you that it is. I'm proud of these people. It's one of the reasons we get along so well, is because you should be proud of them too. And it's a privilege every time we meet to encounter them and talk to them again. And I just want to thank them all for being who they are. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
date of next meeting.
Date of next meeting is the,
Oh, you want a calendar?
oh gosh,
Thank you for.
thank you, July 20th, 2022. Priscilla, thank you for keeping me on task tonight. It's been a real interesting evening for me. So with that, all in favor of adjourning, stand up, turn off your computer and wave. So,
All right.
Why would you wave after you turn off the computer?
well, that's